Okay, let's go ahead and start. So this is lesson 1 of our new module. In this module, we're going to start talking about things like ratios, unit rates, proportions. So I just want you in the back of your mind, start thinking any background knowledge that you have. We started thinking about that yesterday with our lesson about, or with our game, talking about using, a 1-to-1 ratio or a 1-to-2 ratio, something along those lines. So we're going to start off with today. Okay, it's kind of talk about how we measure rates and how we can apply that in maybe some real world examples. So first things first, like we always do, is I always like to break down what we're talking about. So we're talking about relationships in measuring, in measuring rate. And so what that means is how do we look at something, and how do we decide what the rate or how fast or how quickly something is going on. So when I think of rate, I like to think of miles per hour. What is the rate I'm traveling at? What is the rate, or what is the, I can't even think of money. What is the, conversion rate between, let's say if I go to, let's think, if I go to England and I choose to change my money to British pounds, what is the conversion rate between those two things? So it's a relationship between two quantities. So if I were to underline that just to go and give myself a, my, quit. Okay, give myself a definition. Okay, rate. Okay, it is a relationship between two quantities. Okay, and quantities means numbers. Okay, now, that's our breakdown of what we're doing. But before we go any further, at the very top of our paper, I want us to go ahead and write the goal. What is a goal you have for yourself? Okay, it could be as simple as, I want to complete my entire exit ticket today. It could be something, I want to understand how I find rates. So just think something very simply. Go ahead and pause the video and write whatever your goal is for today. Okay. So again, let's kind of go over some of the key terms. So in 6th grade, should be a little bit of a review, because in 6th grade you really do talk about, what it means to be a ratio and unit rates. And a ratio is just an ordered pair of numbers, which are not both zero, because you can't have 0 in a ratio. So it could be, say, a 1-to-2 ratio, like whenever we were mixing those potions in our game yesterday. That was a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-2 ratio. Okay, you can also represent them using fractions, so such as 1/2. Okay, you can also say 1 to every 2. Okay, so those are all different types of ratios and how we write it. You can also say 1/2. Okay, different ways to write the exact same thing. Okay, now the unit rate would be the numerical part of that rate. Okay, and so the ratio is whenever it's the two numbers, but whenever it can also be described as a rate, such as 5 miles per 2 hours. So every 2 hours, you go 5 miles. Or, it even simplifies that for you for 2.5 miles per hour. But the unit rate is the value of the ratio. So for every one thing, okay, let's see, unit rate, for every one thing, something else happens. Okay, so in this case, in the example it gave us, it's 2.5 miles per hour. So I'm actually going to circle that for you and say, okay, this is the unit rate. Okay, for this case, in this scenario. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be practicing this. Now, if I were there, we'd definitely be doing a paper passing where I've done, jumping jacks before. But since I'm not, I'm just going to tell you the numbers. And it'll just have to be okay. So we're going to kind of experiment with that. So we're going to say we did 3 different trials. Okay, we know we do trials because in science, it's best to try multiple times to see for different results. So the first time we do it, So what we're doing is in the course of a minute, so 60 seconds, how many papers can you guys pass around the room? So let's do the very first time we do it, we manage to get 20 papers around the room because you're still trying to figure it out. So you put 20 in the papers passed. Then you put 60 seconds. Okay, because 60 seconds, that's how much time it is. Now, if I were to write this as a ratio, it'd be 20 colon 60. Now, the rate is if I were to reduce or simplify this down to a 1. Okay, so I'm going to get down to 1, okay, 1 paper for how many seconds? So what could I do to turn a 20 into 1? What would I divide out of both 20 and out of 60? Okay, you should have said I can divide 20 out of both 20 and 60. So 20 divided by 20. I can actually put, make this a little bit easier on us. I do have the equation tool. I love equations. 20. My symbols divided by 20 colon 60 divided by 20. Okay, and then if I were to put underneath that, 20 divided by 20 is 1. Good. And 60 divided by 20 is just 30. Sorry, 3 seconds. So 1 paper per 3 seconds. So I'm going to change this really fast. So you put this in here. 1 paper per 3 seconds. Make sure we're using the word per, because whenever we use that, that's what we're meaning. Okay, per is indicating a ratio is happening. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to make this into a unit rate. So in order to make this into a unit rate, the bottom number has to be 1. So what we would say is 1 paper per every 3 seconds. We need to get that 3 seconds, the 3 seconds down to 1 second. So we have to ask ourselves, what can I divide from 3 to make it into a 1? So the answer to that is 3. So we'd have 1. Okay, so we'd have in the denominator, because we're going to turn this into a fraction. If I can see if there's a fraction key on my little thingamabobber, which there should be. Okay. Okay, well, I guess I can't. That's okay. So we would say in my little thing, I'm going to use just a line and kind of just draw it for us. Okay, here's our bottom. The bottom of the fraction, it would be 3. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, and the top, we need to say what we did do to 1 paper. Well, if we divide the bottom by 3, we have to do the same thing to the top. So 1 divided by 3 is what fraction? Good, it's 1/3. 1/3 of a paper per second. That's our unit rate. So let's try this again. We're going to do this one more time. We're going to do it 2 more times. This time though, okay, we are going to give different numbers. So let's say as we're improving, we manage to get to 30 papers. Again, we're staying at 60 seconds to keep it constant. Okay, you know the importance of having constants in science. We have to keep it the same. So what would be the ratio I would write here? Papers passed to our time. What would that be? Good, it should be 30 to 60. Okay, so if we were to simplify this to a rate, we need to get our seconds down to 1 again. Okay, so what would I do to 60 to get it to be 1? Good, I would take 60 and it would become, and I would divide it by 60. So I would write down here, because this is a ratio, it's much like a fraction, and whatever you do the top, you do the bottom. So if I divide 60 by 60, I must also divide 30 by 60. 60 to 60 divided by 60. Okay? And what is 30 divided by 60? That's going to give us a weird number. It's actually not too awful. It's going to give us a fraction. And half of 30, well, 30 divided by 60 is just 30, 1/2. So it's 1/2 to So half a paper per second. Okay. That's trying to do some weird stuff to us, but that's okay. So 1/2 to 1, and that means our unit rate is going to be exactly the same. So 1/2 to 1. So 1/2 a paper for every 1 second. So let's see one final time. Let's say the very last time we decide we're going to do this, they managed to do 120 papers per second, or in course of 60 seconds. Okay, so what we're going to do next, okay, we are going to go ahead and write, okay, our ratio. So go ahead and write the ratio on your notes for me. What is the ratio that you would write for 120 to 60? Okay, if you haven't gotten it yet, this is what it should be: 120 papers to 60 seconds. Okay, now, just like we've been doing, our goal is to get 60 down to 1. So what would I divide 60 by to make it equal to 1? Good. Now, if I do it to the bottom, what must also be true about the top? Good, you have to divide that by 60 as well. So we're going to write that down. Okay, 120 divided by 60 to 60 divided by 60. So, what is 120 divided by 60? Okay, you should have put 2. Good, you should have said 2. And 60 divided by 60 is 1. So that means our unit rate is 2 to 1. Hey, good job. So we're going to try this some more. This is kind of our example and our getting our feet wet into really talking about ratios and how we do that. Okay, go ahead and turn your page. Okay. Now, this one we are comparing 2 different classes. We're comparing boys and girls in class 1 and class 2. In the first class, okay, there are 10 boys and there are 15 girls. Okay, in the second class, it's a lot weirder. There's 20 boys and 5 girls. Okay. Go ahead, fill out the rest of this chart. Tell me the ratio between boys and girls to each one. And then also fill out the whole 7th grade as well. Assuming that these 2 classes are the only 2 7th grade classes, go ahead and fill out and make a ratio for the rest. Go ahead and fill that out and tell me how many boys, how many girls, and what is the ratio between boys and girls in each time. Okay. You should have gone ahead and filled this out. I'll fill it out really quick for us. Okay, but we've got the first one is 10 to 15. We've got 20 to 5. And then we've got 30 to 20. Okay, let's move on because now it wants us to make equivalent ratios. So let's start with the first one, 10 to 15. Okay. Someone go ahead and tell me a ratio. What is one thing I could do that would make 10 to 15 equivalent to something else? Good, I could divide both of those numbers by 5. And 10 divided by 5 gives me 2. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. So that's one equivalent ratio I could make. The next ratio that we have is 20 to 5. What could I do to 20 and 5? Well, I could divide those both by 5 as well. And that's a 4 to 1 ratio. There are 4 times as many boys as there are girls in that class. What about for the entire 7th grade? What could I divide both 30 and 20 by? Okay. We're going to make one together. We're going to divide them both by 10. 30 divided by 10 is 3. 20 divided by 10 is 2. I want you guys to go ahead and write me one more equivalent ratio for this one. What is one more equivalent ratio you could make for 30 to 20? Okay. As you can see, we can manipulate ratios much like we can manipulate fractions. And now we can rewrite them by adding, not by adding, but by multiplying and dividing them by things. Ratios are very similar to fractions. In fact, fractions are a type of ratio. So it's kind of one of those things. It's really interesting to see how we can manipulate and how we can change things. Okay, so before we leave today, we have one final thing. We're going to talk about Value Mart. I know it sounds like Walmart, but it's Value Mart. They're advertising a back-to-school sale on pencils. Remember, as we read through word problems, we always underline, okay, whatever the question is, and then we also circle important numbers. So a pack of 30 pencils sells for $7.97, but a 12-pack costs $4.77. What is the better buy, and how do we know? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to circle my numbers. So I've got 30, $7.97, 12, and $4.77. Now, what is it asking me to do? It's asking me to find out which is the better buy. So what it wants me to know is what is the price per pencil for each of these things. So let's start with the first one. Okay, we've got 30 pencils is $7.97. So if we want to know the price per pencil, we're going to put the pencils in the denominator. So we're going to say $7.97. Oh, okay. Well, let me over. Why is it being weird? Okay, $7.97. There you go, to 30. Okay, so this is our first ratio. Okay, $7.97 to 30. Now what we want to do is find out the price for every one pencil. So what am I going to do to find out how would I get 30 to turn into a 1? Remember, because this is a fraction, we're not just adding and subtracting. We have to multiply or divide. So what can I multiply or divide 30 by to get to 1? Okay, you should have said 30, divide by 30. So we're going to, whatever we do to the bottom, we must do the top. So we're going to say, okay, so $7.97 divided by, here, let me put my thingamabobber in there, divide by 30. Oh, there it goes. Okay, over 30 divided by 30. Now, 30 divided by 30 is just 1. So we're going to leave it like that. But for the second one, we're going to get out our calculator because I'm not doing that in my head. I don't expect you guys to. And divide that by 30. Okay, and it's going to give me a really weird decimal. So I'm going to round it up. So 0.267. Okay, 0.262. Okay, we're going to say 0.265. Let's leave it at 3 decimal places. That'll be easier. That'll just going to be better. Okay, so that's the first one. So our answer here is 0.265 cents. So, but now that's how much it is for the 30 pack. Let's find out what we're going to do for the second one. So go ahead and write on your paper and just set up the ratio yourself. Okay, one very important thing to remember is that whatever you put on the top of the first one must go on the top of the second one. So because we put money on top last time, we have to put money on top the second time. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to write out our equation again. So just like last time, we want to know the price per pencil. So we want to know what the price of one pencil is. Okay, so one pencil, how am I going to get 12 to become a 1? Remember, we have to multiply or divide. So what we did, we take 12, okay, we divide 12. Oh, booger. Why is it being mean to me? Okay, so I'm going to put this, hold on, give me just a sec. I'm going to put it all the way over here so that way my gadget doesn't glitch up again. Okay, 12. Why is it glitching? Divide by 12. And whatever I do the bottom, I must also do the top, right? Okay, so it's going to be 477 divides 12. So let's figure out what that is. So we know the bottom is going to be a 1. Well, what's the top going to be? The top is 39 cents. So 0.3975. So now we have to ask ourselves, which one costs less? Which is the better buy? So which costs less per pencil? So which pencil costs the least? And the answer to that is the 30 pack. Okay? The 30 pack costs less. On your paper, I want you to give me a reason why. So I'm going to write because, and I'm going to put ... And I want you to go ahead and answer that for me. Why is it that the 30 pack costs less? And why is it that the 30 pack is the better buy? Okay? Go ahead and answer that question. And then you are ready to start your problem set. Okay. Our problem set today is we're really starting the idea of thinking about unit rate. We're comparing ratios and their rates when we measure them in different things. So the value of the ratio is always our unit rate, and it's always per every one thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our problem set today. I'm going to do number 1. To do all 4 of them. Okay. 2. And then let's do 3. Okay, if you get done early, you can do the other 4. So number 1, we're going to do actually, I'm going to go ahead and assign 4 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's plenty. You'll be fine. So we're going to go ahead and talk the first one. So we have 420 miles per 7 hours. So 420 per 7. So we want to get the bottom to be equal to 1, to be a unit rate. So what did I do to 7 to turn it into 1? Okay, if you said divide by 7, you're right. So whatever I do at the bottom, I must also do the top. So 420 and divide 7, which should give me 60. So 60 miles per hour. Okay, so our unit rate here, if I write it in a sentence, okay, 60 miles per hour. I want you to do the same thing for B, C, and D. Okay. For each of these questions, so for number 1, we can find the answer to number 1, okay, how we did number 1, on the very front page. So page 1. I'll write that here, page 1. Okay, for number 2, that was on middle of page 2. Okay. Then number 3, okay, that's also on page 2. Okay, and then number 4 is on page 2 as well. So go ahead, do your problem set. When you're done with your problem set, I want you to go ahead and do your exit ticket. Your exit ticket has been assigned on Canvas. You'll be able to find it there. If you have any questions, you can email me. Just be aware I am at a funeral, so please, yes, I will try to answer you, but be aware I probably won't in a very timely manner, just because I am busy. Okay, be good for the sub. Be nice. Okay, when you finish your problem set, do your exit ticket. Okay, so problem set's 1, exit ticket 2, then number 3. Okay, you can play the game that we were playing yesterday, the ratio rumble thing. Okay, have fun. Let's see who can get the highest grade, who can hit the highest level. I finally got to level 8 yesterday, so have fun with that, guys. Okay, bye.